Welcome to the NitWits, a weekly roundtable discussion on the Penn State Nittany Lions, now in its 26th season. Our panel features a longtime Penn State media and NitWits tag team. Neil Riddell of the Altoona Mirror and Mark Brennan of Lions 24/7 with Fight on State. The NitWits are hosted by WTAJ's Andrew Clay, and each week we welcome a former Nittany Lion as our special guest analyst. The NitWits are brought to you by Irwin Financial, Raymond James, a firm foundation for your financial future. By DeLeo Games, serving the community since 1945. By Monarch Cleaners, for all your dry cleaning, carpet cleaning, and rug cleaning. By Reed and Solaney Orthodontics, providing friendly, family-focused orthodontic care in Altoona, Bedford, and Huntingdon. By McAleer's Plumbing, specializing in plumbing, heating, and air conditioning, serving our community since 1886. By Remax Results Realty Group, committed to a culture of professionalism, productivity, and exceptional service. By Dorman's Jewelry, the answer is always Dorman's. By Star Beverage, no matter what type of weather, we are a convenient drive-through one-stop beer store. By Brent Kogan Electrical Services, lighting the way for you. By NovaCare, Altoona and State College, the power of physical therapy. By Fullington Tours, offering round-trip transportation to and from Beaver Stadium from locations in State College and Altoona. By Blair Candy Company, the one-stop shop for all your tailgating needs, candy, snacks, paper supplies, and more. By Harry's Construction, if you can dream it, we can create it. By Lions 24/7 with Fight on State, your online home for Penn State football and recruiting coverage. And by the Altoona Mirror, featuring Penn State Game Day every Friday and Penn State Extra every Monday.
Survive and advance. It wasn't perfect, but Penn State record remains after a 41-13 win over Northwestern. Former Nittany Lion quarterback Shane McGregor joins me in the Nitwits to break it all down on this week's Nittany Nation Overtime.
What I'm doing, getting right to it. The money is talking, I'm flowing, it's coming in just how I do it. Yeah, you know what it is. Hey, we doing it big. Look up, there is no limit, no, we cannot settle for this. Yeah, can't stop, nah, won't stop. Yeah, spin on live, you don't believe it, just watch.
Inside the Nittany Nation studio for another edition of Nittany Nation Overtime, I'm Andrew Clay, Mark Brennan, Neil Riddell, and former Nittany Lion quarterback Shane McGregor with us. It's the Nitwits +2, we'll say. Penn State staying undefeated, beating Northwestern on Saturday. And guys, this was another masterpiece by the defense.
Yeah, I mean, I think there was a bit of the expected letdown after the whiteout when you go out to Ryan Field, 11 a.m. local, 24,000 fans, probably half of them Penn State fans. But what travels? I mean, defense travels, and if you play good defense, you're eventually going to allow the offense to come around, and that's what happened in this game. I think it's just another indication of the great job Manny Diaz is doing. I also think that defense was super fresh after coming out of that Iowa game, only playing 33 snaps. So they were able to get after it all game against the Northwestern team that doesn't quite have that talent level, and I thought that it ended up working out well for Penn State overall.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see how great this defense is as the year unfolds. I mean, so far it's been terrific. You know, their punter was better in this game, and this was a game where some drives stalled. Falcons, you know, kicked a 47-yarder, was 2 for 2. So I think, you know, that part has begun to solidify. You know, there were some other leaks that sprung, but those are a couple of the positives.
And obviously, if you're going to have the season you want to have, you're sometimes going to have to go on the road and win games like this. You would like to have a more decisive, explosive first half, of course. But in the end, to be able to grind it out and outlast and the win is the main thing.
But the problem might be, and we can get into this more later in the show, you don't want to have to keep winning these kind of games. You kind of had to do it against Illinois. Now you've kind of had to do it at Northwestern. Next time you go on the road, it's to play Ohio State. There's no free pass. You can't give them a free half like Penn State has kind of now done on the road so far this season.
But I also think you have to look at the big picture. They're 5-0. They're outscoring teams by what, you know, 40.1 to 40.6 to 9.6 or something. So those things are all positives. There's absolutely no doubt that they have to get some things cleaned up before they get to Ohio State and then ultimately Michigan. But I think this schedule has actually worked out well for them, that they're getting to bye this week, then they have a glorified scrimmage. And if they're not dialed in after all that going into Ohio State, then they don't deserve to win.
You know, Aller hasn't been quite as precise on the road that he's been at home. So that's another, you basically have 3 weeks to smooth some of that out. Like, yesterday he just was kind of off, and the receivers didn't seem like they were really on the same page. Yeah, we'll get into that a little later. One real quick point about the defense, because the special teams put them in a real bind to start the game with the first turnover of the year, but they bowed up right away from inside their own 10.
When you're not, as Neil said about quarterback not playing well, Shane, when you're on the road like that and you are struggling to get into a rhythm, how important and how nice is it to have a defense just provide that security?
Priceless, perhaps. Just to have that security blanket of knowing, you don't want to be too comfortable, obviously, and thinking, oh, I can just hang out here, or we can sputter. Like, you don't want that, of course, but to know that, hey, if we're not getting it going, we got these guys back here on all 3 levels of the defense. It's extremely, comfortable, you could say, especially for a kid who's, again, 5th, 6th start coming out here as the guy, because it's a little different than just coming in for a little bit sometimes last year. Being the guy, sometimes it's not always going to be perfect, and young quarterback has to figure it out.
Well, what's cool, though, is that he knows that. I mean, he basically said the same thing, Shane, and, for him to understand that this defense has given him a margin of error, I think has allowed him to play. Cautious may not be the right word, but he still has yet to throw an interception. And I mean, that is not an easy thing to do. So even when he was missing passes, he was missing them in a way that the defense was, the Northwestern defense wasn't going to get it. But after the game, you've been there, Andrew, Neil's been there. This kid handles himself so well and never takes all the credit, but if something's not there, he gives credit to the defense. He blames himself. I mean, it's the way he handles that. I think that's a very important thing in the development of a QB.
You mentioned 5-0, big picture, but are we satisfied with this 5-0? We've been in similar situations over the last couple years where you're getting out of this non-conference play pretty much unscathed. Should Penn State fans be happy with this 5-0 start?
Well, I mean, happy, but when you look at the teams above them and where you're trying to go, people are putting together more complete performances, both sides of the ball. They're not being totally carried by their defense, as Penn State has been at times. So, I think it is a concern. The fact that their running game, their lack of explosive plays, and some other things that have come up, I think that there's still a lot of room for growth.
I'd rather kind of have the little adversity early. This might sound crazy, but get this team to figure out how to win. Then, I mean, it's obviously you'd love to win by 60, 70, up and down very easily. But to be able to figure some stuff out, I'd rather have to figure it out now and be aware of it now than after you play in Columbus or the other games down the line.
You want to peak at the right time. Look at 2021. They didn't peak at the right time. They peaked before Iowa, and then it was all a mess. Last year they peaked at the end of the season. Penn State does have room to move up, so they do have room to kind of time this out. You mentioned running. I do want to talk more about that, but let's talk about that on the other side of the break. Why is this running game not going? Is the offensive line been an issue? Let's talk about that on the other side of the break. You're watching Nittany Nation Overtime.
The Nitwits are being brought to you by Irwin Financial, Raymond James, a firm foundation for your financial future. By DeLeo Games, serving the community since 1945. By Reed and Selene Orthodontics, providing friendly, family-focused orthodontic care in Altoona, Bedford, and Huntington. And by McAleer's Plumbing, specializing in plumbing, heating, and air conditioning, serving our community since 1886.
You're watching Nittany Nation Overtime.
So against Northwestern, against Illinois, we said Penn State would run the ball. These are bad rushing defense. Penn State didn't really run the ball great against either of these teams. Mark, what do you make of the struggle so far getting the run going?
Well, I think part of it is that opposing defenses realize the key to stopping this team, if you have any chance, is to focus on those running backs. So I think they're stacking the line and making things difficult. Having said that, I mean, you're looking at a Northwestern team that was last in the Big Ten in rush defense. So sooner or later, it's like John Wooden used to say, I'm not worried about the other guy. I'm going to coach my guys to do what they do the best they can do. And it's the lack of explosive plays, because we saw so many of them last year from the running game that they really have to generate at some point. Listen, Penn State, you may find this hard to believe, but is actually leading the Big Ten in rushing attempts and rushing attempts per game. So they're committed to doing it, and I think that tells you how valuable Yursich thinks that's going to be, the OC Mike Yursich, when the Ohio States and Michigans get here.
Oh, and absolutely. I mean, they have a freshman quarterback. How much can you ask him, and you had two great backs, but, I think, and I know he's playing against the reserves, but to me, Trey Potts is quicker to the hole than Singleton or Allen. Allen got hurt this game. We'll see what happens. And it's a dilemma for the staff. For as great as Singleton was last year, it just doesn't look like he's had that extra gear to get him into space. They say that this is the best line in 10 years. Is it? I mean, you had Journey Brown that year late in the 2019. I don't know. It just seems something is missing.
And what separates explosive play from like 4 to 5 yard gain is sometimes very small. For a unit to kind of like almost get to gel all together, you see it with the zones, the darts, the pin and pulls. Like they're there somewhat, but then it's just a little bit missing. And again, that could become with like a maturation as a unit, as a whole. All right, not being what they were last year, but what they are right now, and being able to work together. Again, it could be just a working phase kind of thing.
I thought I didn't go to Illinois this week. I didn't go. Well, it is in Illinois. Anyways, I didn't go to the game at Northwestern. So watching from the above angle on TV, I saw a couple things. One, I don't think the tight ends block nearly as well as we saw Brenton Strange block a year ago. I think that's been important on sealing the edge, but also sealing the back edge. And I think some of that comes too without the threat of the quarterback run. Last year, on those RPOs, you had to defend the backside because you didn't know if Sean Clifford would keep it and go. You don't have to do that. We're seeing the backside come down, and those cutback lanes just aren't there. How many times did we see these break runs last year, these long runs come from cutbacks? Hitting that hole and then, nope, not there, and cutting back. That lane is not there. There's no room on the backside. I think that's something Mike Yursich has to kind of modify in this unit right now, because what I see is a team that still very much wants to run these zone runs and these RPO type runs. You just don't have a quarterback that's running and that allows the defense to play differently.
Well, that's true. And what we sit here the last 3 years and say they ran their quarterback too often. They got him banged up. Brenton Strange was one of the best blocking tight ends they've ever had.
We took that for granted.
You have to go back to like Vito Cab. I mean, but I agree with you, and I'm not sure they're getting quite as much blocking or receiving out of their tight ends, because those dink and dumps, you tell me, should be able to be there. Yesterday, they only between the two of them, they only caught 4 balls.
I think Warren's a great catching tight end, though.
True, and I think 2 of Aller's biggest misses were to the tight ends. On that little crossing around from Warren, and then on the. Which could have been a touchdown there in the back end.
It should have been a touchdown.
Yeah.
I mean, we talk about some of the Aller issues. His receivers, his tight ends, they haven't always helped him out. That throw in the back of the end zone, I believe 100% should have been caught.
Yeah, but I would also say, speaking of that throw in the back of the end zone, they haven't taken nearly as many deep shots as I expected them to take. I think everybody thinks about Aller having a big arm, and I think that goes hand in hand with them trying to get him through the first part of the season, being as safe as possible without making the big mistakes. But when you talk about all the things you're talking about technically, Andrew, one of the things that would help that is if you have to keep the safeties honest playing downfield, knowing that this guy is going to take some deep shots. And I think eventually that's going to be something that they're again, when they play these bigger teams, you watch some of these games around the nation, nobody is just dinking and dunking the whole time. Almost everybody's taking shots. They've been able to get this far, and it's that's okay. But I think when you get into the bigger games, you're going to have to look downfield.
Well, they took some shots to their photographers, but I wonder what makes you think that if they're not comfortable taking shots now against Northwestern, that they're going to let Aller sit back in the pocket and start taking shots against Ohio State and Michigan.
You could keep in your back pocket. They're winning these games comfortably. What are you able to go into Ohio State and show them that they haven't seen on tape? That is one thing that they can go in and do that Ohio State's seen nothing
I don't know. I mean, is that overrated? They threw the ball out to Keandre Lambert-Smith, and he was going to throw the ball a couple weeks ago. Potts has thrown a touchdown pass. So, I mean, they have
We're
shown
talking
some
scheme,
things.
though. We're not talking trick plays.
Well, you're asking about stuff in your back pocket.
Yeah, and I'm saying they haven't used the deep ball nearly as much as they could.
They did try throwing one there deep late to Dante Cephas. And that ball, that ball was so much, could have been a touchdown. It's so close. It was one of those toe tap, if you get the right. I thought that was refreshing, though, to see them throw the ball and finally be aggressive down the field.
I think he has that kind of touch. I guess that's what I'm getting at, that they can use that when they're willing to take some more chances. Eventually, he's going to throw an interception at some point. Yeah. He's not going to go through the entire season. You can't keep him safe the entire year. And I think you're going to have to put that big arm to work.
And it's the threat of it, too. You're going to make a defense play on it. You've got to play on all three, intermediate, middle, and then also up over the top. And, yeah, he's got the arm to do it, goodness. But, and they might be just kind of keeping that in the holster and waiting. Because, you get a big play touchdown early on, and they say in the first half against Ohio State completely changed the complexion of the game. Like, maybe that's worth holding 6 weeks for it.
That ball to Cephas was the one that it ran into our photographer buddy Joe Hermit. So shout out to Joe.
Okay. Joe's okay. Yeah.
Well, when we come back, I want to talk about Bo Pribula. They're keeping the Bo Pribula package in their back pocket. Let's talk about that on the other side of the break. You're watching Nittany Nation Overtime.
The Nitwits are being brought to you by Monarch Cleaners for all your dry cleaning, carpet cleaning, and rug cleaning. By Remax Results Realty Group, committed to a culture of professionalism, productivity, and exceptional service. By Dorman's Jewelry, the answer is always Dorman's. And by Star Beverage. No matter what type of weather, we are a convenient drive-through one-stop beer store.
You're watching Nittany Nation Overtime.
Back here on Nittany Nation Overtime, we've talked running game, passing game, receivers, offensive line a little bit. Let's talk about backup quarterback Bo Pribula. We got to see him come in, throw his first passing touchdown. I believe that was the second one. We saw him get that one to Trey Potts. How have you guys felt about his performance coming kind of out late in these games against some garbage time play?
I think he's done a great job. I mean, he's seems like he's the ultimate team guy. He is a run-pass threat. So he brings another dimension. Should they want to bring some package in out of your back pocket?
Pretty big pocket, at least on that side of my pants.
Shane, was there ever a package for you? Was there ever the Shane McGregor package?
Oh, there was not. No. That's
there should have been.
We're on the standard stuff with me. Yeah. But no, it's gold. These reps that you can get, and they split time in practice. I'm sure the ones and twos are about equal, maybe 60-40, if not 50-50. But to be able to play in these games, and then also to throw the ball, he's running the ball a lot, and to actually play off that kind of thing, you're giving teams one more thing to think about. And because there might be a time, I don't even like bringing this up, but there might be a time where he might need to play some much more meaningful reps, and you need a quarterback ready to roll. We've seen that in years past. And also, I'll go back to, here's one for you, Pat Devlin comes in relief for Darryl Clark in 2008, and we win a big game in Columbus. It can do a lot for you.
Yeah, well, James Franklin was the one who painted the seed of him possibly coming in as a change of pace, giving him a series here and there, which I don't think would necessarily be a bad thing. I think those two quarterbacks have a great relationship, and I think Aller would be okay with it. But he's definitely a completely different style of quarterback. The one thing I worry about is that now when people see him come in, they're going to realize what he's all about, because there is enough of him on tape at this point, because they've been blowing people out. But he's been effective when he's been in there, and I think it's been really good that they've been able to get him the snaps they have.
And some teams are able to make the two quarterback package kind of work. My concern is it just takes you out of your rhythm. And is it easy to come in, Shane, and just do a series and just be in rhythm right away? You've got no essentially warm up.
It can maybe take you out of rhythm. It can also spark a rhythm potentially. If you're in a half, maybe something like this against maybe a better opponent. Another one for you in Columbus. This is 2011, and we used Bill Belton and I think Curtis Drake, in the Wildcat formation, and that literally jump started us to a win. So it's one of those things where it kind of goes game by game. Even just usage with who you're handing the ball off to, it kind of flows game by game. But that could be something that could help. You just want to have it as good as possible.
His touchdown pass created a little Twitter buzz. People thought that they had faked a knee and then threw the pass. He wasn't going to take a knee there with 2:20 to go with your backup in for his first snap. James never really takes knees. So, but it's out there.
I was behind the Penn State bench after that happened, and believe me, it was more than buzz coming from the Northwestern fans. There were some choice words being shouted at James Franklin over that.
I think it's one of those things that I don't think any of us actually thought that was supposed to be a fake knee, but it is something that now needs to be examined and make sure you are not going to construe a fake knee, because you don't want that play being blown dead, especially in a situation where maybe it is in the middle of a game that's actually important and not in the final minutes.
It looks smooth too. You run your third string running back on a little seam route, kind of a little 7-on-7 route there. It was good.
Hey, and Neil touched on this. What a blessing it was to get Trey Potts out of the transfer portal. Not only is he able to come in and do what he did in place of Fat, who's Katron Allen, but he's allowing them to redshirt their two really good freshman running backs, which they haven't been able to do the last few years.
Who was the last Penn State player to throw, rush, and receive a touchdown pass?
I would guess that it was Trace McSorley. They may have done something.
Did Sean? I feel like did Sean have a receiving touchdown?
Yeah, I think he did.
Okay, so he would have been the last one, but that's so rare, especially if you're not the quarterback.
Well, the crazy part is he did them all in the state of Illinois. I don't think nobody may have ever done that for Penn State before. I know they didn't ever do that.
You mentioned that some of the Northwestern people were irritated. So a couple of little things that bothered me in the game is they once again had an unsportsmanlike penalty. And I really think they need to take a harder line on these little things, shoving people in the face mask, handing people the ball. I just don't think it's necessary for a championship level team and a team that wants to portray as they always have.
Well, there are no unsportsmanlikes when you win the Nitwit of the Week. We're going to have those results. Don't give it away.
What a transition.
There may be some unsportsmanlike conduct after this one, believe me.
We'll have that when we come back.
Don't miss a minute of Nittany Nation Overtime, now also on Apple and Spotify.
The Nitwits are being brought to you by Brent Kogan Electrical Services, lighting the way for you. By Fullington Tours, offering round-trip transportation to and from Beaver Stadium from locations in State College and Altoona. By Blair Candy Company, the one-stop shop for all your tailgating needs. Candy, snacks, paper supplies, and more. By Lions 24/7 with Fight on State, your online home for Penn State football and recruiting coverage. And by the Altoona Mirror, featuring Penn State Game Day every Friday and Penn State Extra every Monday.
You're watching Nittany Nation Overtime.
Well, the segment everyone waits for every week. It's our Nitwit of the Week. And Neil, you got a football on the board. How do you feel?
Relieved.
How do you feel about your performance this week?
There's a lot of football left. How's that? I didn't want him to run away and hide. I don't mind losing, but not to him.
Well, if Mark keeps winning, we're going to have to change the size of the ball so we can fit more on there.
I want Neil to fess up, though. You screwed your pick up last week.
I did.
You wanted to go higher than me, didn't you? So the only way
I did. I choked on my pick, but I still won.
The only way he's able to beat me is when he screws up.
Well, I almost nailed it, though.
Survive in advance.
Yeah.
Good job. Good job, Neil.
And we'll have to get Shane to make the guest pick for next
week?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we'll get to that in just a second. One thing we wanted to talk about, some defensive standouts. Any guys you guys want to talk about individually?
Yeah, I mean, obviously Zane Durant with the stats. I mean, the big sack, multiple tackles for loss. This is a guy he's a true sophomore, coming in and doing what he did at D-tackle as a freshman, and now he's up to like 290 pounds. He is a handful. I was really impressed by what he was able to do, and I thought he kind of personified what that entire defense did against Northwestern.
Yeah, I didn't think it was the greatest tackling that we've seen from the defense this year, but Kobe King early on in the game, and I was happy for Tyler Elston to make a play. He was starting last year. He's lost his position, but he's still contributing. He stepped in with a big 4th and 1.
And as a unit, what a formidable, I'm thinking from a quarterback standpoint, like having that always in your head, got to get this out of my hands kind of thing. If I don't, I mean, it's just, yeah, it's something to watch, that's for sure. Yeah.
I really like Kobe King, and Elston's made some plays throughout this year. He had a really great pressure in the Iowa game. A lot of guys probably would have a lot more sacks and whatnot if teams weren't just game playing to get the ball out of the hand. We didn't see Northwestern do that as much on Saturday, so that was certainly allowed Penn State to get.
Well, you mentioned, and I think it bears. I mean, that was a great special teams play to smell out that fake punt at the time that they did. So give credit to Zion Tracy.
Yeah, defense certainly brought it up. Any final thoughts before we get out of here?
No, I just think they're in a good spot heading into the bye week. I think they really just have to get. They have an opportunity to work on all these little things. Shane talked about it a little bit earlier, but sometimes maybe it's good to have little things that you have to address rather than just going through and blowing everybody out and not having anything. So I think the players realize that. I think the coaches realize that, and they have some time to work on it.
Shane, you want to get your UMass pick in?
Score-wise?
Score-wise. We're going to do ours next week.
Let's
get you in.
7 and a field goal. We'll go 52-0.
52-0.
He actually did math. Yeah. You're not allowed to do that on this show.
Shane McGregor with a 50-burger and a shutout. That
gives us about a week and a half to figure out what we're doing.
Well, that'll do it for this week's edition of Nittany Nation Overtime. For Shane McGregor, Neil Riddell, Mark Brennan, I'm Andrew Clay. Thanks for watching.
Thanks for watching WTAJ's Nittany Nation Overtime. Tonight's show is brought to you by DeLeo Games, Cisney & O'Donnell, The Student Bookstore, Joe Comfort Toyota, Legends Power Sports, and Belding & Mall.
The Nitwits have been brought to you by Irwin Financial, Raymond James, a firm foundation for your financial future. By DeLeo Games, serving the community since 1945. By Monarch Cleaners, for all your dry cleaning, carpet cleaning, and rug cleaning. By Reed & Salaney Orthodontics, providing friendly, family-focused orthodontic care in Altoona, Bedford, and Huntington. By McAlear's Plumbing, specializing in plumbing, heating, and air conditioning, serving our community since 1886. By RE/MAX Results Realty Group, committed to a culture of professionalism, productivity, and exceptional service. By Dorman's Jewelry, the answer is always Dorman's. By Star Beverage, no matter what type of weather, we are a convenient drive-through, one-stop beer store. By Brent Kogan Electrical Services, lighting the way for you. By NovaCare, Altoona and State College, the power of physical therapy. By Fullington Tours, offering round-trip transportation to and from Beaver Stadium from locations in State College and Altoona. By Blair Candy Company, the one-stop shop for all your tailgating needs. Candy, snacks, paper supplies, and more. By Harry's Construction, if you can dream it, we can create it. By Lions 24/7 with Fight on State, your online home for Penn State football and recruiting coverage. And by the Altoona Mirror, featuring Penn State Game Day every Friday and Penn State Extra every Monday. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next week.